Hey Ed, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Pretty good, mate. Thanks so much for coming in.
That's alright.
How's your afternoon been?
Yeah, it's been alright. I worked last night, so I've been trying to bank some sleep for a night duty I'm preparing for tonight, so yeah, good times.
Starting pretty late? Or?
Yes, well no, starting at 7 but finishing at 7:30 in the morning, so.
Wow, that's pretty late, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the life I chose.
So let's get started. Obviously, I'm completing my degree in exercise science, looking to move into physiotherapy in the future.
Yep.
And my subject that I'm completing at the moment, communication for health professionals, requires me to do a bit of an interview, as I've told you earlier. So to get us started, can you tell me a little bit about where you work and how long you've been working there?
I'm a registered nurse at a private hospital in Brisbane, and I've been working there for about 3 years now.
Yeah, and what kind of patients do you deal with on a regular basis?
So it's an acute medical ward, so we'll have general medical, geriatric, so very elderly patients.
Yep.
Have some renal, infectious diseases. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of dealing with a lot of different types of people, and a lot of different character types as well.
Yeah, and do you obviously assume you would communicate with other members of staff? And professionals as well.
So on a day-to-day basis, you'll be talking with your team leaders, your medical staff, doctors, your allied health, physios, dietitians, occupational therapists, and then the patients themselves and often the patient's relatives.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, communication is key. And so, just ensuring that the right information is going, where it needs to be and is clear and effective.
Yeah.
So.
And do you feel that your style of communication changes when you're dealing with different, members of...
Oh yeah, because basically you want to hone in. Like if you're talking to a doctor, you're talking about a patient in a very general sense. But if you're talking to a physio, they're not going to care what their diet is.
Yeah.
They might care, are they eating? Yeah, sure, okay. Yeah. Then they've got enough energy to keep going. Yeah, and I'm not going to talk to a dietitian about a patient's mobility, because that's not what they're particularly focused on. They don't really care how they're walking, but that they are walking.
Yeah.
So you've got to tailor your responses to the specialties that you're talking to, and then even talking with patients themselves and patients' relatives. So if you've got to communicate clinical ideas in a way that they can understand clearly and not sound condescending at the same time while you're doing it.
And do you feel that when you're dealing with these people, rapport building and trust is a big part of that relationship?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, without trust, if the patient doesn't trust you, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to establish, a back and forth and a level of trust with them in order to, achieve the ideal patient outcomes.
So do you have any kind of tricks or anything that you find is a really good effective way to build that trust and get that rapport on the way?
To be honest, it's probably something that I don't even really think about anymore. It's just a natural part of, the way I operate at work. But, being friendly, open, and, allowing a good back and forth. So it's just, I'm sorry, I can't think of the way that I do establish this. It's just something that becomes a second nature now.
Yeah. So, even little cues we've learned, eye contact and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Not looming over someone. If talking on their level, talking to them as they'd like to be spoken to, and having to establish that in the first place as well.
Yeah, nice. And I know myself as a personal trainer, and that's how we know each other.
Yeah.
Dealing with people from different cultural backgrounds and ethnicities, and that really plays quite a role in how you would communicate. Do you feel that you've kind of adjusted your communication style when you deal with those people?
Yeah, well, you kind of have to. I mean, certain people, with any types of cultures, some people don't want to be touched by women, others don't want to be, men touched by women, women touched by men, so you've got to be conscious of that. You often have, elderly old ladies that, being a male nurse, they're like, no, I don't want you to shower me, I don't feel that's appropriate. I'm like, that's fine. Yeah. But you've got to establish this by, communicating with them to figure out what they want and how you can help, achieve that.
Yeah. And have you ever come across a situation, or have you ever seen a situation in the hospital where there is a breakdown in communication?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
how does that affect the
absolutely.
outcome?
We recently had a patient who was palliative, and the doctor said, don't do any vital observations, but if you think they're in pain, monitor their pulse and respiratory rate. Don't record it, but monitor it.
Yeah.
And so he first communicated this a couple of days ago, and I was working last night, and he was still having to ask, like one of the nurses asked him, do you still want us to record pulse and observation? He's like, I don't know why I need to keep saying this. I just said, if you think they're in pain, check their pulse and their respiratory rate as a way to, determine if they are.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of recording it, it's just, a clinical tool you can use. And
Keeping an eye on the
but
situation.
he's still having to explain this 3 days later because whoever's first had that communicated to him hasn't taken it in properly and then passed that down over consecutive days. So
that must be quite frustrating when you feel
yeah
I don't need to be told again and
and it's frustrating for the doctor. It's just like, why am I still having to explain this? I've explained this every day for the last few days, and I'm still being asked the same question. So it looks poorly on you. I mean, it's not the fault of the person asking, it's just the way that communication breakdown that it's led to that point.